I've been on the board with the community here, and we've had a situation where a resident has just totally disregarded attempts to try to work with them on getting caught up on their HOA payments over a long period of time. And so none of us want to have to go through the whole process of, and you maybe already have addressed this today, and I'm sorry I just now tuned in, but to have to go through the process of foreclosure, that's the last thing we want to do, not to mention all the legal expense involved, and would we even get our money back if there's some aspect of, I don't know, bankruptcy associated with it?
How much do you think the homeowner owes at this moment in time?
The board about 8 months ago. So at that time, I want to say, gosh, probably at least 2.5 years worth, probably somewhere in there.
Well, does that add up to $2,400 or $24,000?
Oh yeah, okay. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 1,600 to maybe 2,200.
Okay. All right, Ed, for this, I'm going to turn you over to Attorney Patrick Burton. He's an HOA attorney right here in Central Florida. Patrick, that's got to be a common issue for your law firm, homeowners, condo owners that are not paying their monthly fees. What's your typical advice to the HOA board on that?
Well, I know that it's unpopular and it's difficult to deal with these situations because they're your neighbors. No one wants to be known as a tyrannical board that is out trying to foreclose on people. But remember, boards have an obligation to fund the activities and the requirements of that association. And the only means for revenue that it has is the homeowners who voluntarily decided to move into this community. Every time somebody doesn't pay, it means that the remainder of the homeowners need to pick up that balance. So I know it's difficult, but ultimately you have an obligation to collect those assessments. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be predatory about it or hyper aggressive or anything. There's certainly payment plans that you could enter into to allow them to pay it back over a period of time. Just make sure you get that in writing. We've had situations where associations will agree to maybe waive interest off the file or something like that, just because they're not eager to get a property into foreclosure, because who knows what's going to happen then. Maybe you'll recover your money as part of the foreclosure. Maybe you won't. It's impossible to know for sure. So if there's a way to guarantee you're going to get at least 80 to 85% of the money, that might be the best move to do, even if it stretches it out over a period of time. So I would say investigate those options with the homeowner. But ultimately, if it just doesn't seem like anything's going to work, unfortunately, you may not have a choice but just to go through the foreclosure process.
Patrick, could it be malfeasance for the board to not foreclose these unpaid HOA dues and fees?
You could make that argument if it goes on long enough. And this is for homeowners out there that are upset with your boards for enforcing the documents against you. We have had many instances where the board themselves have been sued for not enforcing the documents.
Would you, as a law firm, or would somebody on the board, let's say Bill is not paying his HOA fees, would somebody go and check and see how much equity Bill has in his home or condo and say, well, he's upside down, he owes more than the condo's worth, why bother? Or they might say, hey, he's got plenty of equity in this piece of property, it would be worthwhile for us to foreclose. Is somebody making that kind of judgment call on it?
Yeah, before we file a lien foreclosure action, we do a title search on the property to try to see what other interests are out there and get an idea of what the value of that property is. And the reason that's so important is because when the property goes up for sale at the end of the foreclosure process, if there's equity in the property, you probably have a decent chance of getting paid because a third-party investor is going to come along at that sale and purchase the property. If they're underwater, they owe more money on their mortgage than the property's worth. No one's going to want to buy that property. Remember, the association's lien is subordinate or inferior to the mortgage. Yeah. So when you foreclose on it, that mortgage is still there. So we've had some sad scenarios at our office where somebody thinks they purchased a property at an HOA foreclosure sale. Oh my goodness, I'm the smartest person in the world. I just bought a property for $8,000, a beautiful 3-bedroom house, and they don't realize that the mortgage is still attached to that property. So they really just bought a massive debt.
Patrick, I've had that happen to me several times over the years, people not realizing that, yeah, you got it for $8,000, but now you owe the first or second mortgage on it as well. So it's not the bargain that you think it might be.
Right.
Of course, when you do that foreclosure, you are entitled to attorney's fees and court costs as well. So it adds up to that as well. So as far as Ed is concerned, he was not. I think he might have said at the end of the day, $1,600. I mean, we're not talking about much money, but it's still a judgment call he's going to have to make.
Yeah, we've made the argument before that it may not seem like much money, but it sounds like from what Ed was saying is that the homeowner hasn't paid in a couple years. And imagine what would happen if every single person in the community made the decision, we're not going to pay for the next 2 years.
Exactly. Hey, folks, my guest today has been Attorney Patrick Burton with the DeMasi Burton Law Firm right here in Orlando. Patrick, thank you for coming on the show today. You can say hello to your kids one more time.
All right. Willow, Winnie, hope you're being good for your mom. I'll see you later today.
All right.